Hi, welcome back to another episode of RE Radar. Once again, I am your host and realtor, Nathan Matheson. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this is your first time listening or watching to the Radar, let me tell you a little bit about it. The goal of this podcast is to help educate buyers, sellers, and just anyone interested in real estate or learning a little bit about real estate, just to educate them and to impart that knowledge on them, as real estate is a complex industry and field. So for the average person, it can be daunting, but here at the Radar, I'm here to help you guys expand your knowledge and get more comfortable. Now, this is the second part to my first time home buyer question video. So part two here, and what we're going to be doing is just like last time, I'm going to be going over a few first-time homebuyer questions that I got from the poll I put out on my Instagram, and we'll just jump right into it. No need to dilly-dally today, because the first question is, where do I even start? And that question is one that I love so much because it's really so impactful, and buying a home is such a big deal because of how expensive they've gotten. And it's nearly guaranteed that this first time home buyer, this purchase of a house is going to be the biggest purchase you've ever made up to this point in your life. So obviously that can be daunting, that can be scary, and that can scare people off if they aren't educated. And when someone is dealing with something like this is a little scary. I mean, purchasing a home is such a big decision that you might just be overwhelmed, especially if you don't really understand where to even start with purchasing a home. So that's what I'm here today to answer that question of where do you start? And really just getting right into where do I want you guys to start is for you to reach out to a real estate agent. Obviously, I'm biased because I am a real estate agent. But the reason why I think reaching out to a real estate agent early on in the process is so key is because they are an expert. As a first time home buyer, you want an expert in your corner as early on as possible, because then this real estate agent is going to be able to help prepare you and help get you set up for buying a home that you'll end up being happy with. As the first thing for first time home buyers to really get into and start learning is just education. Education is really the most important step in the whole home buying process. And I want my clients to be at least somewhat knowledgeable in real estate, because we're going to be talking a lot of real estate back and forth. I'm going to be sending you listings and discussing these things, trying to figure out what you like about these homes and understand what you are truly looking for. So if you have a general understanding of the process or a general understanding of real estate, it will be so much better and such better conversations, and actually be able to figure out what you truly do like, because you're going to have more confidence, because it's not all just completely foreign to you. Even though you're not going to be an expert in real estate, you're going to have a little bit of knowledge and be comfortable discussing real estate, which when you're comfortable discussing it and able to openly communicate with your real estate agent about your wants and needs and all your desires with this home, it is going to lead to you more likely being happy at the end of the purchase. Now, aside from education though, one of the first things I recommend you doing is to talk with a mortgage lender and figure out the financial side of this transaction, because the finances are going to be a huge deal, as like I've said, as like you've seen in the news, real estate is extremely expensive. Median home prices in Seattle are over $800,000. That's a lot of money. So figuring out your finances early on is going to be huge, because let's bring up a little scenario here. Let's say you don't talk to a mortgage lender early on in the process. Let's say you decide, all right, I'm going to start looking at homes myself. You go on Zillow, you go on your home site everyone uses, and Google up homes for sale in Seattle. You start clicking through these homes. You're like, oh, this is beautiful. This is a great home. I want this one. Let's look at this. And it's an $800,000 home. You're then at that home, you're talking about it. Maybe you're at an open house for it. And next thing you know, you're like, I love this home so much. I want it so badly. But then now, after looking at this $800,000 home and falling in love with what it offers you, you go talk to a mortgage lender, and they come back with you being approved for about $500,000 of a home. So now you've just realized this home that I fell in love with is nowhere near my reach. And you start looking at the homes in your range of $500,000, and you're always going to be comparing them to that $800,000 home, and they'll never meet that expectation. And so when you do eventually buy a home in the $500,000 range, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. Maybe you're going to put up a good smile and, oh, I love this home. But in the back of your head, you're going to be like, man, I wish I had that $800,000 home, but you just simply couldn't afford it. So if you do not talk to a mortgage lender early on, you might fall into a trap of falling in love with a home that you cannot afford. And then you're always going to be comparing these cheaper homes that are in your budget to that more expensive out of budget home that they can never match. And if you had already started talking to a realtor, then I would have hoped that they would refer you to one of their mortgage lenders that they've used or that they have a trusting relationship with. And so that you can then talk with them and figure out the finances. Because as a realtor, that's one of the first things I recommend to clients, because it's hard for me to truly help you out unless I know what your budget is. So if you do reach out to a realtor early on and you sign the contract and they start showing you these homes without even discussing a pre-approval for a mortgage with you, then that's a red flag in my opinion, because it shows that that realtor might not be the best themselves. Having the financial research done before going out and looking at homes demonstrates that that realtor knows what he's doing and wants to do the best job possible for the client. Now, of course, if you are a cash buyer, then you don't need to talk to a mortgage lender. In a cash situation, though, it is always good to get that proof of funds early and to be able to prove that you actually have those funds. As for some reason, if you aren't willing to or able to provide proof of funds to a real estate agent, as a realtor, I probably wouldn't be able to fully help you out with finding a house, as that's hard for me to start focusing on you solely and to give you all this attention when I truly don't actually know if you have the money available, if you are going to be able to buy this home, as I'm not getting paid until after the home is purchased and closed. So if you can't provide for me proof of funds, then how can I be sure you're actually going to buy this home and that you're actually serious about buying a home? I'm going to be putting hours and hours of research and work into finding you a house. I need to kind of know if you can actually afford a home before I start doing all this work. Otherwise, what's the point of all that work, right? Now, once you've talked with a real estate agent, once you've gotten pre-approved for a mortgage, or once you've got proof of funds, if you're a cash buyer, what are the next steps? It's to actually start looking at homes online. And if you're with a real estate agent, then it's best to really start talking with them, going back and forth, send them some homes you like. They'll probably send you some homes they think you like. And this can help refine your search and really figure out exactly what you truly do love, what you truly do want, and what you truly do need in a home, because this is kind of what us real estate agents, what we do every day. We're looking at homes online, we're doing research into homes and figuring out different things. So talk with the expert, talk through your opinions, talk through your ideas with them, and they can help refine that search for you and help you get that perfect home. So now that I got that wrapped up with what are you going to be doing, you're going to be talking to an expert, a real estate agent. They're going to get you set up with a lender to then figure out what you can afford. And then you can start looking online, start talking with your real estate agent, and figure out truly what you love. Those are kind of the steps to get you started. But now moving on to the next question, we're going to be going over the hidden fees in buying a home. And so the first thing I'm going to touch on with hidden fees is the idea of the closing costs. And those typically range from 2 to 5% of the amount of the loan. What typically is seen in closing costs is inspection fee, appraisal fee, loan origination fee, title insurance, and search fee. You've then also got the escrow deposit funds, which are prepaid funds that are held by a third party to cover property taxes and home insurance. So with those closing costs, you can expect, 2 to 5% of the loan, of the purchase price, to have to come forward with that. And then also, of course, you might also have a fee for your real estate agent. For the most part, though, I will say with the data I've seen and with what I've seen just through looking at listings, the seller is still offering to pay some type of compensation to the buyer's real estate agent. However, of course, I have to say that is not required. So before you get too far into the process, you might want to see what type of compensation that seller is offering, as laws have changed where you're going to have a buyer broker agreement in place with your real estate agent. And part of that agreement is going to have to be the fee that this real estate agent charges you, and you have to have that signed. So that's just something you want to be aware of. What is the compensation that the seller is or is not offering? Now, next question I've got is, how much can I afford? So a standard way that you can kind of figure this out is looking at your debt to income ratio. And a number that I've seen that often gets used in pre-approvals and rough estimates is 36%. So your debt can be 36% of your income. And by debt, what do I mean? I mean student debt, credit card debt, car payments, and then of course that potential mortgage payment. And now there are calculators online where you can type in your income and the different debt. You add that in there that you have, and they'll then give you an estimate for the price of your home that you might be able to afford. But if you are thinking about buying, and even if that might not be down the road for another year or so, I would still potentially recommend reaching out to a mortgage lender, a mortgage professional, and talk with them. And they can figure out and give you a much better, firm idea of what you can afford now. And then you can talk through with them kind of what you were hoping for. And they could potentially find ways and help point you in the correct direction to straighten out your financial situation and fix it to a point where you can afford more home when you are actually ready to buy. If you want just a quick little estimate, go online, type in how much house can I afford. A mortgage calculator is going to appear, type in the information, and that will be a rough estimate. But if you are potentially serious about buying within a year, year and a half, I would not be afraid to reach out to a mortgage lender. It's going to be free of charge to get a pre-approval. You can reach out to them, talk with them, and figure out how much home you can afford right now, and then go over methods for you to be able to afford a better home in a year. Now, what are kind of common mistakes that first-time home buyers typically can make? So this is a great question as well. All these questions have been great. So thank you to everyone who gave a question. I really appreciate it. But for this question, I would say the most common first-time home buyer mistake is what I've been harping on and is what I harp on all the time, and that's education. If someone comes in to do a real estate transaction, if they're a buyer and they're working with an agent, but they're really clueless themselves, I think that is a disservice to them. Because education is what leads a home buyer to be more comfortable and to be more understanding of the full process, which if you're more comfortable in a transaction and if you understand what's going on throughout the whole process, I feel you're more and more likely to actually be truly happy at the end of this transaction than if someone who's relied on their agent the whole time, because they won't truly understand what could have been different versus what there wasn't anything you could do about that. So education is a huge mistake some people might make. And then another huge component that people cannot quite understand is just the idea of managing expectations. This isn't 1980. The home that you're able to afford right now as a first-time home buyer isn't going to be your dream home. It's a sad reality, but real estate in the United States has become such a high-priced commodity. So when you want to make that leap from renting to buying, you do need to understand that that home you're likely to get into first is not going to be your perfect dream home that checks all the boxes. And if you go into it thinking that you're going to find that home that you want to spend the rest of your life at, your expectations are going to be off, and that can skew your opinion and skew what you're looking at and how you're feeling when you're looking at homes if your idea was, this is going to be my final home. So that about wraps up actually all the questions I've gotten. Thank you very much again for everyone who asked a question, and thank you to my listeners. Thank you to my watchers. If you ever have any questions, feel free to send them over to me and I will get to them. But this has been RE Radar. Thank you to my listeners. Thank you to my watchers, and I will see you again next week for a Tuesday tour and 2 weeks for another podcast episode. See you then. Peace.